and I have to say this now so that you don't judge me as we go. I speak not a lot. I am a talking machine. The minute you press talk, you are also responsible to press finish. You don't be afraid. I'm a teacher by profession. So if you at one point left school under a class, you might have to answer for that now. Because a lot of times we find ourselves in situations where we do certain things just for the sake of doing. And that tendency have a way of leading us to where we don't want to be. I grew up in a very rural village called Mmano Ramadwa. It's way deep in Venlo. And the last born of my father, all my father's children, all my father's official children, I would not know about his unofficial. Because he had my mother as his second wife. And when I was growing up, I stumbled across information that my mother was almost younger than his firstborn. And he was old. Because when I was born, I think 3-4 years later, he retired. We lived in Musina, a mining town, just before Zimbabwe. But then I grew up and got to that point where I started messing up with my life. And I missed big time, big opportunities that I missed. But I messed up so much that when I was, how old was I? 20 years old? I was working in Headboard at a farm. And I did not have anything tangible that I could show to people. And my mother kept on crying and saying, come back home, go to school and all that. She believed so much in education, and I wondered why. Because she was in primary school. But she pushed me back to class. And when I finally went to class, I was 23 years old. Wow. Got my matric at the age of 23. I was bearded like I am now. It's just that at that time it wasn't really as strong as it is. But when that happened, I decided consciously to go back to school. Got my matric, and after that, I did not know what to do. You know, when you have gone out of school at that time, you get so confused as to what is it that I can do. I wasn't mathematical, so I could not go into engineering. And the only thing that I wanted to do was just to find myself at a college or university and study. But it did not happen. When they were conniving at home, they connived my brother, my mother, they connived so that I could go into teaching. Little did they know that they were throwing the fish into the water where I belonged. So I qualified as a teacher. And that is why I'm saying when I live like a teacher every day. The talking machine that I am. They thought they were just trying to prevent me from doing other things because I was very exploring. But one thing that I began to realize was that in life, there is one important thing that you must acquire. Whether you're educated or you're not, you must just acquire the level of consciousness. If you can't do anything, if you can't get a qualification, if you can't start a business, have some level of consciousness. Because the biggest challenge we have in this world today is to be led by unconscious leaders. And that is suicidal. And people here, men particularly, are so comfortable to be led by unconscious people. Because the same unconscious people keep on being voted in and out, in and out. The cycle continues, but they're doing the same thing. Now, in a situation like this where we find that men are behaving in and I want to call it an ungodly way. Because man was not really designed to be the way he is today. He wasn't. Men got out of rain. You know, it doesn't matter how many times you try. If you take, these models, if you try to move it within the rain, it moves so smooth. But if you take just one wheel out, you will do your best, but it will never move to a direction where you want it to go. And that's exactly what man has turned out to be, because he moved and shifted away from the real purpose that God created the man. If you go back to Genesis, it will tell you that when God was in Trinity, he said, let us create man. And he structured in our own image and likeness. Now that's a powerful statement coming from the creator of all. He says, in our own image. So he gives you a picture of who you must be. And he says, in our own likeness, he gives you a character to say, this is how you are going to become. Now, if you move out of the character of God because it is what you have been given, then operation is difficult. It's impossible, in fact, it's impossible to operate outside of the character of God if you're a man. And I'm not saying a woman can operate, because that way, in our own image and likeness, it was for both of them. So men and women are the same, character is the same, functionality is different. So man was created in that way. But how did we get here? Because the structure was established. How did we get here? How come we are finding, and like I'm saying, I'm a teacher. I've spent about 20-something years in the classroom. Basically, there is very little that I do not know about children. And I'm talking teenagers. Very little. How did we get here? We got here because we shifted. And some of us were raised by our mothers who took their time. The previous speaker was saying something very profound. You cannot replace a man in the life of a young man and in the life of a young man. You can't replace a man. And if you decide that you're going to consciously replace a man, you will struggle for life. So we did that. And because we are led by unconscious people, they read stuff from outside of Africa, and then they hear it is working so well. And then they come back, and then they want to implement it here. You know, I always say the biggest enemy in the lives of communities is membership. If you look at unions, they come together. We are members, right? And when they are members, what they do is they take decisions together. Whether those decisions are working for other members or not, and then we take it now to the Organization of African Unity. And then because we are there in membership, whatever that is being decided at that level, it can be applied in every context. Unfortunately, in here, it can't work. Colonel Gaddafi was killed by people in membership. They agreed to say we can't actually get out of it. So we sort of moved out of the rain. But I want to tell you a little story that happened a couple of years ago when I was just coming from college. Came from college very politically aware in our community. And then I joined the PAC, and there were fightings around 1996 when the first local elections, the PAC lured me and said, no, come here, you're strong, you're young, and let's get people rally around you so that you can become a ward council. And in the process of politics, I got arrested. And I got into prison. Remember, I was now educated, I was a teacher, so I got into prison. When I got inside, I found all people, all those who were awaiting trial, they were sitting like that. And then I looked around, I could not find somewhere to sit. There was just a little platform like that, covered in blankets, and I did not know what it was, and I just thought, maybe because I'm here and I'm a politician, let me just go and sit there. There will be a time when you will actually look very foolish, when you are in a place where you don't belong. Wow. When they said, and then I started engaging those guys. We were talking and they were telling me stories of how things happened and stuff like that. And eventually, one of them gained the guts and said, but Maria, where are you sitting? It's the toilet. Now you see, all the time I thought I was so much in control. I'm sitting here and these guys are listening to me. And I'm sitting on the toilet and I don't understand why I did not even smell what was happening there. I felt so stupid for the first time in my life. But what happened when I was there, I started realizing that I did not just get there. I got there because there are certain things that happened. And I can guarantee now, every man, every woman, every human being that you know, where they are at this moment, they are largely responsible for being there. They are largely responsible. Whether you're a woman and you have 10 kids, you are responsible. There are decisions that you took that you shouldn't have taken. There are yeses that you said that you shouldn't have said. The same thing with the men whom we are seeing doing all these sort of things. They are largely responsible for where they are. And here is one of the things that actually take us away from where we are supposed to be. Thoughts. You see, the Bible says, as a man thinketh,
so easy.
So easy. It's a very... I want to read this thing. As a man thinketh, so is he. I really want to read this because we seem to let it pass a little bit. And it says, eat and drink. Just after, as a man thinketh, eat and drink, saith he to thee. Now the he, let's hold on to that. but his heart is not with thee. Who is the he? Who says, eat and drink? There's an enemy there who is giving you things that he says you must do. Because his understanding is not to get you where you want to go. And that is why we are largely responsible. Our thoughts will take us somewhere where we don't want to go, if we choose the thoughts that are negative. But if we choose the positive ones, will take us somewhere. Now here is the thing. A person who is always critical of what they do is at one point going to find themselves in deep trouble. And I'm not saying nobody should be critical of what they do. But if you critique yourself so much that you end up not seeing any good thing about yourself, who am I to tell you that there are good things in you? It becomes difficult. We are where we are because people have sat and they are criticizing themselves, and they believe that nobody loves them. And then when they get out, they are already so angry at everybody they see. And because they've planted such, it creates problems for them. Not only for them, but for the entire community that we have. Self-critical thoughts. I read a story of a lady. The surname is Offrey. In the United States, apparently she took a very bad position in a hospital. She was still learning, I think, or in practical. She was giving medication, and she gave medication to someone who was diabetic. You know this kind of things where they say someone who's diabetic, you don't give this kind of medication. So she administered such kind of medication, and that person nearly died. And she says, I carried the guilt for a very long time. Every time where I was going, I always thought, these people when they look at me, they see me as stupid because I administered this medication some 5 years ago. Now she was living with the guilt for a very long time. And what does that actually do? It deviates you. You can't even see the now. So if you have made a mistake in the past and you decide to live in the guilt of that mistake, where do you think you will go? People make mistakes. People hit others big time. They get into jail. They get out of jail. But when you come out, think about certain things. He was mentioning something to say criminal record will not go. But there is something in the character of God that you have been given. They say, now here is the thing. Let me just decode this a little bit. When God says, let us create man, what skill did he use? The creative skill. And when he used the creative skill, he said, let us create man in our own image and likeness. So he was passing out the creative skill. Now you have the creative skill. You're coming from jail because you have messed up. But you need to start to be creative. Because it is out of your creativity that you will begin to see the multiplication of your being. And these are simple things that people need to know. If you look at the township economy, people speak about the township economy, and Gauteng government is so good at saying that. But you're saying the township economy must thrive. But you're coming and you're trying to make things happen for people, and you have not asked them to say, give us a plan. What do you want? What do you want? What do you think? How do you think this place would actually look like if you were to be given the understanding of doing things? And people will tell you. And some of the greatest ideas are sitting here with people who seem to have let it go. Because they are looking at themselves and they are so doubtful of who they can become. I was, in my first book when I wrote, I did a bit of research about Morgan Freeman. And I tried to look around for Morgan Freeman. I wanted films of Morgan Freeman when he was young. Is there anybody else who has seen Morgan Freeman film? When he was maybe in his 20s or 30s? Morgan Freeman got his first movie break at the age of 52. That is why whenever you see Morgan Freeman on film, he's an old man. But because the gift that God gives to an individual, he doesn't take it back. It lives with you. And even when you choose to die with it, you just die with it. It's just as simple. So, and a lot of times we are asked questions to say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then we say things unconsciously. And yet we are telling the truth. When I was in grade 9, I said, and I was doing John chapter 1, verse 1 to about 15 or so. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. I was doing that when I was in grade 9. Am I doing the same today? Is this not what I'm doing today? It's the same thing, but I do not know. So, when you want to find out exactly how functional you can be, don't function outside of yourself. Take a bit of steps backwards and check exactly. What is it that I was doing when I was young? What were the things that I did automatically that I did not even want to be paid for? And if your thinking is not shaping to a point of productivity, you lose out. And that is why people are drifting away, and then they can do what they want to do because they don't believe anymore that they can be. The second thing that I feel we have actually lost, and this was influenced by my daughter. A couple of years ago, I was living in Hill. I had a certain bad habit as well. And one day, we sat with my friend in Maritzburg and we drank a lot on a Sunday. And then the next day, by the way, I don't drink anymore, right? Yeah, we drank a lot and I needed to go home on that Sunday. And I wanted to catch a train. My friend kept on saying, no, there's a last train. The last train it comes around 8 o'clock. And then 8 o'clock we went there. And the last train was not there. Now I'm in Maritzburg, I have to go home. And I could not. So I slept in my friends. Then the next morning I took a train very early in the morning. I did not even bath because I was rushing. I still have to go to work. Then I arrived in Joburg, rushed to my flat. And as soon as I entered the house, my daughter asked me, Daddy, where did you sleep? It changed my mind. That was the terror. Behavior will take you where you never wanted to be. It's so bad. You know, we do things and we believe that we are so much. You know, these social clubs, people come together and, they do things and they forgot about the most important things. I was not even supposed to be in Maritzburg on Sunday. I was supposed to be at home, playing good music. But I found myself in Maritzburg, drinking and all that, and then I come home on a Monday. My question was, if this girl remembers this thing in the next 10 years, and she asked me the same question, how would I respond? It was difficult. But it's behavior that actually does this to us. I work in an organization now, and I had a situation a couple of days ago. I was talking to some young man, very young. He reports not under me, he reports to my junior. And then when I was talking to him, he just threw tantrums. That's a workplace. You behave like you don't care. And yet, you need this job. I mean, we are in the middle of a pandemic. There are people who have no hope during this time. And I'm talking the hope of getting a job, of just being employed. There are so many people who have no hope for it. But you behave like you have it all figured out. You know, what made me to leave school was the fact that and I'm talking high school, way back then, it was something that, you know, when you call it intelligent, because I wasn't really dull at school. And even when I did not pass my matric, I did not blame anyone. Here is the thing. There are times when you will be taught and you feel like you know more than everybody else. And that happened to me. I went to do matric and I just got a school living certificate. I mean, for others, that school living certificate, they would have worked so hard for it. I did not even work hard for it. And then I went back trying to get my certificate again. And I behaved the same way. They say you do the same thing, you will get the same results. And that's how I got it. My results of 1 year and the results of another year are only different by 1 digit. So 12 months of waste. And then I made another mistake. I decided, no, I'm leaving school. As if school depended on me to exist. But 3 years later, I went back to the same school. So behavior is bad. And that's where we are today. A lot of men, as we were talking about issues here, a lot of men who are doing all these sort of things, raping women, killing women, it's as a result of behavior. And it started very small. And the more it grows, the more dangerous it becomes. The other day I was driving in Pretoria, R80. I'm sure you must have heard about the R80, one of the dangerous roads. And I was there on a Saturday. As I was driving, somehow I passed a young boy. No, not this. Must have been in grade 1 or 2. In the middle lane, right? In the island in between. On the other side, there's a man standing there, just folding his hands. And this young boy, he's busy begging. He's asking for money from motorists. Obviously, for me, that was not the idea of the young man. Not even a young man, a little man. That was not the idea. The idea was of the man on the other side. Because if that was a man who knew what he was, who did not know what he was doing, he would have gone there and said, boy, go home. But that's behavior. We get ourselves into behavior that does not actually glorify God. That does not actually do anything for the lives of other people. And that is exactly how we got out of the rain. The third thing that actually got us out of the rain is choices. We choose to do certain things. You know, when I ask people, why did you choose to do this kind of thing? And this is common sense that I was taught when I was in primary school. You cannot choose to do something when you have not thought much about it and the consequences of it. If you choose, you know, I have a friend of mine who loves inviting people. Sometimes he will just call around 6 o'clock and say, no, can we meet? I said, okay, what's up? Why should I come and meet with you? That's my first question. Now, if he says, can we meet? There's something that I want to propose to you. Then there's a reason for me to go there. Do you understand what I'm saying? But if he says, no, I'm just missing you. No, man, I can't advance your agenda. You're missing me, so you want to advance your agenda by my presence. No, it doesn't work like that. People are called. Someone will just call and say, no, ukoka. No, you go to. How about Luruweta? Can we hang out? When you woke up knowing you were going to Mabon, now I did not even decide I was going to go to Mabon. Now I must pack my things and come for you. Choices. Interrogate these things and ask, what's in it for me? When I tell children to say, it's after school. The children will come, hang around outside the home and call you and say, come, let's go to the shops. They know why they're going to the shop. If you just ask yourself one question, why am I going to the shop? What does going to the shop advance me? If it doesn't, no thank you. But if it does advances you, go. And these are choices that we must actually make on a day-to-day basis. And when we make these choices, it is choices that have actually led people outside of their normal operations. People who are in jail, they made choices that actually made them. I was just looking. The other day I looked at on social media, I saw one man, that video even today, it makes me laugh. One man carrying the whole thigh of a car. I'm sure you have seen it. That man, do you know, carrying that, and he was walking so determined. But do you know what my question is? It's not about him. Let's say you get home with that whole big meat. And then let's say you cut it well, and 3 days later you're still consuming that. What are you saying to each other? Every day when they're eating that meat, which is trending on social media, what are your children saying? That's choices. You should have thought about that before you went into that butcher. And these are little things. Here is another thing that I believe it has a potential of getting me into trouble. If there is one thing that I don't blame the former president for anything, but if there is one thing that I blame him for, is this whole debacle and what it will do for his children in the future. Now you see, you do certain things because they are choices that you are making yourself. But then the legacy not the legacy of the country can work itself up, but the legacy of your own children. After so many years, some people are going to read about what he did. And they are not going to have an opportunity to plant it on him. But they will see the children and the grandchildren. And then every time when people mention that surname, they will say, your father, your grandfather. It's choices that you make. And they are going to follow you. When the Bible says in Exodus, I don't really love to read much about that. When it says God will actually bring punishment to the children and the grandchildren. And these are things that we bring to our children, to our generations, because we are making choices that are not honorable. Right now, there's a debate, a big debate, around to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. We were discussing that at church, or at our fraternal on Thursday. And and this is my worry. My worry is not whether you vaccinate or you don't. No. My worry is, how do you take me when you are vaccinated and I did not? And how do I take you when I did not vaccinate when you are vaccinated? That's the big debate. The big debate is not about whether the vaccine is good or is bad. The big debate is about the divisions that we are actually experiencing now. choices on a day-to-day basis that are going to create problems. And in the long run, those who have actually thrown us into that deep end will be sitting and laughing. But instead of us just accepting and acknowledging that, now if your faith says vaccinate, go on and vaccinate. If my faith says I mustn't, allow me not to. But don't discriminate us. Don't drive a wedge between us. Because we are individuals, we love each other, we live. Do you know how bad this thing is? I was in Limpopo the other day, and someone that I know very close had been going through COVID. And I parked at the gate. And the question was, do I go in? Do I not go in? Is this person comfortable when I come? And then, I prayed inside and I said, I just hope that the decision that I make is not going to hurt him. And then I decided, I opened up my door and I closed my door and I walked straight into the yard. And I said, no, but for me, let it be if it is. But I'm not going to leave you at this time when you need all the comfort that you need. And then we sat and we had a discussion. And then he came out of it. And I'm still standing today. It's choices that we make. But choices that are made in faith will sustain us for the rest of our lives. Choices that we make out of faith would make us be that which God has created us to be. If we are the salt of the earth, what more should we actually teach? I'm going to leave you with 5 things. All these 3 things that I spoke about, choices, thoughts, and there are many more that I have actually isolated, can be reversed. Bad as they may look like, they can be reversed. And the best way to reverse it is to do a review. Just sit down, look at your life, look at your thoughts, interrogate how your thought patterns have been like. When you have looked at how those thoughts are like, start relating your thoughts, start relating your choices to where you are today. If you can't relate, if your bad choices have not led you to a particular position where you don't like, let me give an example. If I am married and then I find myself concubines, because it's behavior, right? If I'm reviewing my behavior and see this love of concubines for me, how has it affected my marriage? If it hasn't affected my marriage, maybe it's not yet there. But has it affected the relationship? If it hasn't, then you may have actually done something very, very, I can't say right, because it's never going to be right. Maybe you have been, you have tried to hide it as much as you could. But if you find that it has actually worked so badly into your marriage, do this review. Look at how your choices have affected your life. Look at how your choices have affected your thoughts. Look at how your behavior has affected how you did certain things. Now, if you understand what this has done, so you have related the problem to where you are today. Now, if you have gone to that point, thirdly, you must learn to respond to that situation. What is the point of going to do a test for any other thing? And then when you have done the test, and then they give you the results, they give you the results, and then you decide not to respond to it. Something must be done. When you respond, it means that you acknowledge to say, yeah, here, things did not go right. let me take it to a turnaround. It's important. But the fourth thing is you need to also recognize what the other problems are. Recognize your stumbling blocks. You know, some people have serious stumbling blocks and they don't really understand them. There are stumbling blocks like anger. It can be a very big stumbling block. You want to live well in peace with others, but you have this thing around. Acknowledge it. Because if you acknowledge it, it becomes very easy to manage it. Acknowledge or recognize that if you have a roving eye, if you have a roving eye, acknowledge it. Know that this is a stumbling block. And because you now know that it's a stumbling block, everywhere where you go, the first thing you do, you start by disclosing yourself. From there on, people know. So that even if you get tempted to say something, they'll say, you have already assisted yourself. Understand exactly what the problems are. Some people can take one glass of wine, right? They take one, before they know it, they're already at number 12. Acknowledge, recognize this thing. Because if you recognize that, to be honest with you, I'm going to A1 thing. We fail. Recognize that because that's your problem. It's a stumbling block. Once you recognize it, you are at a better place to reform. You see, there is nothing so great than to tell a testimony that I was once a drunkard. But when you tell people who are now, when they look at you, they can't even believe it. That's reformation. You know when you say, I did not tell you what I was doing in Helport. I was working in the piggery farm. My whole day from 6 to 6 in the evening. The noise, the smells, no, I can't now. But it irritates me when I hear I hear the noise of a pig for my life. When I hear the pig making that sound, do you know one thing that the pig hates is a hunger. A pig hates hunger. It loves eating. It eats every moment. Now imagine if you out till like a 6. It's a job the whole night. You're not going to have a good day. So, injections. You can go on to YouTube. I've actually done the video of that. Because, you know when your life has not reformed, you sit with that thing hanging. But once you reform your life, you were saying you don't even love to be a lawyer. Do you understand what I'm saying? But you have achieved that. You've gone past that. You have embraced the other kind of life that you have. I was laughing there when you were making presentation. I was laughing. But here is the thing. Everybody who has ever had a dream, let me disclose it to you now. Anybody else who has ever had a dream, that dream is not gone. Do you know who is gone? You are sleeping on your dream. You are just sleeping on your dream. Everything. I told you about Morgan Freeman. Now here is some interesting news. You remember this guy called, you remember the Nobel Peace Prize? The Nobel Peace Prize that we all talk about. Mandela had it, Bishop Tutu had it, who else? F.W. de Klerk had it, and many other people. But do you know who started it? His name is Alfred Nobel. Do you know at what age? At retirement. Do you know what was his job? His job, he was a scientist. He created bombs that actually killed people in countries. And then one day the newspaper headline just went on. The merchant of death has died. Mistaken identity. And then he goes and he buys the newspaper. He wants to read the newspaper in his own age. When he opens, he realizes the merchant of death has died. And there is his name. Yes. And then he started thinking, also, this is how people are going to remember me if I die. And then he decided, no, I must find a way to redeem myself. And he started the Alfred Nobel Peace Prize. Today, we don't talk about the scientists who kill people. We talk about a man who is fighting for peace and who is encouraging people to be peaceful. The gift of God is irrevocable because it was not given to the meat, to this flesh. It was given to the spirit. It's your spirit that counts. The rest, your body can be deformed tomorrow. You can get involved in an accident tomorrow. My voice can go and all of that. But the gift of God is in the spirit. If the voice is gone, the hand is writing. I am going to write the messages. So if you are sitting here and you're thinking, I am a bad man. I have done the worst. You have not started. You have not started. You are alive today. And you know the worst thing about us and thinking about what we could have. It's the fact that we don't seem to know that even when people are dying of COVID-19 today, those who are remaining with the task. The first task that you have is to be able to tell the testimony of what happened. What has happened during COVID-19 in 2020? Do you still remember that euphoria when people were buying food in bulk and closing down? And do you still remember how you felt like when you were checking your bank balance to say, but if this thing goes on for 3 months, am I going to still be? But where are you today? You're here. And you're telling the testimony of what happened in 2020. It's not a mistake. And those who are gone, we're not saying they chose to. No. But the reason for you to still be here is because there is a bigger agenda. And that agenda was mentioned in Genesis. That agenda was mentioned in Genesis. If you're a man here and you're living here in Soweto, just look at things. You have the creative mind of God. Because when he created in his own image. You have that creative mind. What is it that I can do? And remember, some of us had to be battered first for us to have a great message. So maybe you were battered by life so that you can be able to assemble your message. Because you can't solve the problems of the world alone. Yes. There are problems that have not been solved yet. Because the person who must solve them is still sleeping in the gift. It's time to wake up and become socially awake. We just need to be socially awake. Look around ourselves and see exactly what is it that I can do to solve this problem. A few years ago, I decided to resign as a principal. And friends of mine were saying to me, you're running a functional school. You have things going for you. Who resigns as a principal? I think at that time, I might have been in my 40s. Yeah, I was in my 40s when I resigned. And then they said, what are you going to do? Do you know what I actually looked at? This is a confession. I sat in the office and I realized that everything else was going smooth. But I realized that I will be wasted if I am to sit here for the next 15 years waiting for retirement. And then I started interrogating. There must be something bigger that I should do. And I chose something bigger. But I did not know what it was. I did not know what it was. But at least I had faith. At least I had faith. And because I know that faith is the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things to come. And that's what I have. Whether it's visible or not, I'm not worried about that. But you see, the minute it clicks here, you begin to have a picture. And it is that picture that makes you socially awake. And you begin to solve the problems of society today. The choice remains yours. Nobody is wasted. The gift is still there. It's up to you. I said it's up to you. Whether you take it or you don't, it's up to you. But